Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started on day 2 of our conference on digital trade. My name is Kyle Renner. I manage the Institute for International Economic Policy here at the George Washington University. It is my pleasure to welcome you here to the Elliott School for International Affairs on behalf of myself and Susan Aronson from the George Washington University, as well as our collaborators from the World Bank, Michael Ferrantino and Mayan Jelkovic. And also, I have to note that this event wouldn't be possible without the financial support of an anonymous donor, as well as our event sponsors, who include eBay, Google, ICANN, the George Washington Center for International Business Education and Research, and our partners at the Internet Society DC, who are live streaming today's event. So welcome also to everyone who is watching online. It's our pleasure to have everyone here in the room, and I'm looking forward to another robust discussion. IIEP is a research institute based here at GW that focuses broadly on trade, finance, and development, with a particular focus on the economics of adaptation to climate change, in particular in low-income countries, the economics of ultra-poverty, and studying how to measure and target the poorest of the poor, U.S.-China economic relations and China's internal economic development, what's actually happening inside the country and what trends we should be watching. And then lastly, global economic governance. And our work here today is part of the efforts we've been undertaking for the last probably 5 or 6 years, spearheaded by Susan Aronson, that look at the changes in global financial institutions, as well as the rise of the importance of internet governance. So it's a particular pleasure to have such a distinguished panel of speakers today. But before we begin, I'd like to provide a quick recap of the panels from yesterday so that those of you who were unable to participate have a sense of where the conference has reached so far. So panel 1 brought us the perspective of several entrepreneurs, Abdulaziz Sai from Senegal and Daniel Adidwa from South Africa, along with the former ICT Minister of Colombia, Diego Molano Vega, as well as Michael Ferrantino from the World Bank. They shared examples of trade-related issues relevant to their work and came to a consensus that digital trade provides a significant opportunity for billions of people, especially in low and middle-income countries. Minister Vega told us that by 2020, approximately $1 trillion would be changing hands among 1 billion people across borders via e-commerce channels. Panelists agreed that effective banking regulation and enabling online payments was a key issue, especially for entrepreneurs like Aziz and Daniel, who are building companies of the 21st century. He cited the example of Kodak, which in its early days was seen to be taking away jobs of photographers by putting cameras in the hands of regular people. At its height, however, Kodak provided more than 200,000 direct jobs and millions of indirect jobs for people who were working in associated industries. Today, Instagram is the world's largest photo-sharing platform, and Kodak has filed for bankruptcy. Technology and society, thus, seem to always move forward hand in hand, and it doesn't seem to be any different this time. There's not only no use in trying to fence in our current 20th century industries in search of job protection, that also possibly serves to only kill innovation. Instead, it seems that the challenge is to train enough IT engineers, but also to increase IT skills among other professions. One example would be doctors who might be able to better fight the Zika virus if they understood big data and cloud computing and how to analyze the data that they were receiving. And lastly, Michael Ferrantino presented the Aid for E-Trade initiative from UNCTAD, which aims to capture policy discussions around enabling digital trade through assessing national e-commerce readiness, ICT infrastructure or lack thereof, trade logistics and barriers, payment systems, laws and regulations, and skills gaps. He mentioned the case of a startup in Macedonia providing an e-commerce platform that ran into legacy regulatory issues concerning food products, pharmaceuticals, music and film, and who found it overwhelming to interact with a policy system that did not understand that all of those areas of economic activity could fall under a single business platform. Panelists in the audience largely agreed about the need for new policies that can make sure innovative entrepreneurs are empowered to disrupt current business models while ensuring that there is no negative impact on equality and or the reduction of poverty. The second panel focused on intellectual property and was quite lively and included perspectives on intellectual property and digital trade that spanned the political spectrum. We had a human rights advocate, an industry lawyer, an IP professor, a market-oriented research organization, and a representative of new corporations with quote-unquote lefty interests in things like fair use. And they all walked into a bar, or in this case, a panel, and then set out their stall. We heard that access to knowledge is a human right, but not without protest from a panelist/author who did not think it was a human right for someone to read his book without having to pay for it. We heard from a GW student who asked why he and his friends could so easily get away with downloading pirated content, which led to an interesting discussion of enforcement mechanisms and their utility. Everyone agreed that copyright can be an effective way to promote innovation and creativity, but there were many unanswered questions about the right balance between protection of today's artist and protection of the future creator. The future creator often stands on the shoulders of their predecessors and uses existing intellectual property to make new works. We thus heard nuanced views about the necessity of copyright regimes for developing country entrepreneurs and how price discrimination and income inequality should factor into our thinking on IP policy in the digital economy. The kernel of discussion fell on fair use provisions and the need for IP regimes to retain flexibility. What must be allowed under fair use and accessible to the public in an equitable manner? That was not something that we figured out yesterday, but we had interesting perspectives on it. Should it be music made by Prince or other artists? Should it be publicly funded research, whether that through universities or foundations? Should it be content that empowers disadvantaged populations or those who are disabled? The jury is out on many of these questions, and today's panels will continue to debate back and forth. So with that quick summary, let me again welcome everyone who is listening in and watching online. We're using the hashtag DigitalTradeConf. If you are listening in online and would like to ask questions of any of the panels today, please use that hashtag. You can also tweet at the @IIEPGW Twitter account, as well as the @WorldBankPSD account. It's then my pleasure to turn the microphone over to Victoria Guida, who will give a very brief introduction of panel one and then invite our speakers to the podium. Thank you.